sometimes some matches are about having them, you know? And I personally, if I was wrestling Bryan right now, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to beat him. I don't want him to retire. I mean, that's selfish because he has very good reason for hanging the boots up. But I personally wouldn't even want to beat him.
What I want to start off with is you're a Long Island girl, Valley
I'm a Long
Stream,
Island gal.
White Castle, my favorite place, right on Sunrise Highway.
I was just telling one of my friends, I was like, yeah, Valley Stream. We got Steve Buscemi from here,
Yeah,
Fred Armisen, who was on SNL, and Willow
yeah,
Nightingale. And those
oh,
are the famous Valley Streamers.
well, what about White Castle on Sunrise Highway?
So I am familiar with it. They have some really good milkshakes, but I'm actually a vegetarian, so I was never big into
Oh, okay,
White
okay.
Castle.
There are two people that come
Hmm.
from Long Island, and one of them has been compared to Stokely Hathaway, compared you to Long Islander Mick Foley. How do you, how do you, what do you think about that?
I love that comparison because I am a huge Mick Foley fan. When I first started wrestling, found a lot of inspiration from his ability to be tough but lovable, have like the unconventional build, but still like be seen as like somebody who could really, you could put them in the position of being at the top of the card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I drew a lot of inspiration from that, from all of this being unconventional, but still being lovable, but being tough. Um, all these different characters, being able to have your charisma also kind of
Oh,
take
yeah.
center stage. And so he is one of my favorites, like literally of all time. And I remember probably within my first year, he was at a show that I did. And during intermission, my parents went up to him and they were like, our daughter, you've inspired her so much. She loves you. And he was like, oh, well, where is she? I'd love to meet her. And they
Yeah,
were like, oh, she's in the locker room. And he was like, what? But
yeah.
I was too nervous, so I hadn't like gone up to say hi to him yet. And then we kind of ended up chatting, and I was
He's a
able to tell
great
him all
guy.
of those lovely. Yes, he's lovely. And I mean, my little sister jokingly will refer to him. She'll be like, "Oh, you mean Uncle Mick? Like I met him when I was a kid."
Yeah,
And
unreal.
I
I actually videotaped his wedding for him.
that's sick. That's awesome. That is
That is,
very cool.
there was no hardcore stuff there. It was very romantic. It was very
I
nice.
can believe that.
Another guy that is famous from Long Island, and he, of course, makes this known almost every week on AEW programming, is MJF. Are you proud to be
Yes.
from that same area as MJF?
Um, for
Oh,
everything, for everything that Max is, I will say that he is passionate about professional wrestling, and he is one of the guys for a reason. And so he may be a scumbag, but I would say I'm proud to be from the same place as him. I also think it's, you know, one of the best places on earth. The most
oh yeah.
magical place, I think, is what he calls it on earth.
I actually
Yeah,
lived in
I
Massapequa
do
for a
share this
while.
love.
Yeah, no, I lived in Massapequa for a
Oh,
while in the
that's where my
magazine
parents are out of right
offices.
now. Yeah.
The magazine offices when I was back at Pro Wrestling Illustrated was in Rockville Center. So, I know the area
Oh,
very well. Is he
oh,
too full of
I've
himself?
had a lot of crazy nights over there.
I'm sure
If
you
you
have.
ask me, yes. But if you ask him, he would say probably not enough.
Probably not enough. What's his
In his
best,
words.
what if we were doing a scouting report on him, what's his best quality and what's his worst quality?
Hubris, I would definitely think is his worst. His
Okay.
own, um, his pride in himself can oftentimes be his downfall. Um, but I think I mentioned it earlier. His biggest point of strength is his passion. That is undeniable. He cares about professional wrestling. He loves it, and that is something
Yeah.
I will always bond with someone over.
Since we're talking about the male division right now, If Tony Khan came over to you and he said, you know what, we're going to do some intergender stuff, who's the guy on the roster here that you want to wrestle? Who would that be?
There's a lot. I mean, I think the first person that came to mind actually was Lee Moriarty, because when I was an independent wrestler, it was something that was actually possible that I could have wrestled him. And so in the back of my head, there's always like, oh, I still want to wrestle Lee Moriarty. But I am a huge Bryan Danielson fan. That, and like, obviously he announced that this, his title reign, that is the end of the line for him. Whenever he loses it, he says he's done. So I would want to be one of those people. That would be cool.
Wait, what would you do to beat him? I mean, he's like totally unbeatable at this point.
Sometimes some matches are about having them, And I personally, if I was wrestling Bryan right now, I wouldn't want to beat him. I don't want him to retire. I mean, that's selfish because he has a very good reason for hanging the boots up. But I personally wouldn't even want to beat him. I just want to get in there with him. Eddie Kingston is another person I would really love to wrestle. It's crazy. Our roster is so stacked. There's just a lot of people I would want to wrestle. But those, I think, would be the first three that came to mind.
Those would be your first choices. You had an opportunity earlier this year to team with Adam Copeland. What was that like?
Bananas.
Okay.
I grew up watching him on my television.
Of course.
And his wife is another person I admire. So
yes.
To be in proximity even to them, like when Adam first joined AEW, I was like, this is so cool. I had his intros music stuck in my head for a week. I was going around singing it to everyone, everywhere, all the time. I was playing it in my car. And then that opportunity kind of presented itself. I was like, there's no way. This isn't my life. But it is. But it's not just some crazy dream. It is my reality. And so that was very, very cool.
Sure.
And I hope he's healing on up well, because he's missed.
Yeah, and we want him back, don't you? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. He would be a nice person to have. I mean, I have the conglomeration in my corner. So I do have my friends, in Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, Ishii. But Adam Copeland is another good friend to have in your back pocket for sure.
Definitely is. A couple of months ago, depending upon when people are watching this, there was a photograph taken of your boss, Tony Khan, and having a meeting with Shane McMahon. When you saw that, did you, like everyone else, like an holy SH moment?
Honestly, no, because I know that there's a lot of things that make their way onto the internet, and it's never as it seems. There are stories that I've seen about my own locker room that I've been present for, and the discourse online is just so out of hand and so ridiculous. So for me to see something like that, I didn't even want to give it any thought or speculation, because I'm like, it's never what it looks like at first glance. So
okay.
That's generally the way that I look at most things online and in anything that you see from like the wrestling media.
You mean the internet sometimes has things that are not true?
Crazy, right? Who'd have thunk it?
What's up with that? You can see behind me. There's Stinger, and he's behind me here. He's behind me here. He's gone from competing allegedly in AEW. I'm sure you were probably a Stinger when you were growing up. What was it like working with Sting and just getting to know him?
I mean, I never got to work with him directly. And sometimes I do think that is like, this is a complex thought. I feel like it is much more common for men who are like veterans in this business to be doing this into a later age because of patriarchal systems that are in place for women to have shorter shelf lives in professional wrestling. We have babies, our bodies change, and of course men become fathers and their lives change, but that doesn't necessarily affect their in-ring careers. And now we live in a day and age where women can have babies and come back to wrestling, and we've seen women who are mothers have full-time careers, and I think that's beautiful and amazing, but you don't really get to see your idols from your childhood share a locker room with you the same way that men do all the time.
Who was that? Who was that idol from your childhood?
So for me, what was very, very cool is that I grew up watching Trish and Lita, and I got to watch them again pretty recently. That's been awesome. But the closest thing for me right now is actually somebody I got to meet at Wembley is Aja Kong, because
amazing.
And you know, she's somebody who I'm like, well, that's an idol for me, and she's still going. So how do we make that work? But that's not to take away from Sting. It's just like you don't really get the same interaction as you do if you don't get to share the ring with them, if you're not doing segments with this person. So I didn't get to have as close a relationship to Sting as some of the guys in the locker room, but I did have to run out into the stands for his final match and watch it live. You know, we have a TV backstage that we watch most things. We have talent viewing, but I was like, no, I got to be out there and feel it in the crowd, and it was so cool. It was very emotional.
I know, I saw it.
Check out BrainBuster, the daily quiz that tests your WWE knowledge with winning streaks, stats, and more. It's time to see if you're up for the challenge.